Darius woke to the sound of the alarm clock at 7:30 in the morning, as usual. Evie was still asleep, curled up under the blanket, her long, dark hair spilling over the pillow. He got up quietly, trying not to wake the girl. She worked late into the night as a courier and deserved an extra hour of sleep. The kitchen in their one-room apartment was tiny, but Darius had learned to make breakfast without making too much noise. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee, simple food for simple people. Working in the warehouse required energy, and there wasn't enough money for restaurant delights. But their joint streamings on TikTok were gaining more and more subscribers, and advertising contracts were starting to bring in a good income. The apartment on the first floor of an old building in downtown Ellendale was cheap because of its location. The windows faced a busy street, and the noise of cars and the voices of passers-by were constantly heard. But it was perfect for the couple close to Darius's work, convenient to Evie's courier routes, and a short walk to the center of town. Evie showed up in the kitchen around 8, wearing his old t-shirt and short shorts. She always looked naturally beautiful in the morning. No makeup, sleepy-faced, but that only made her lovelier. Darius loved those moments the most, when she was just being herself, without cameras or likes. "Good morning, handsome," she said, hugging him around the waist from behind. "Morning," Darius replied, turning to her. "Coffee's ready. How are the plans for the day?" "The usual. A few deliveries, then I want to hit the store for groceries. And then our stream tonight, remember?" Michael shook his head, not understanding, but Darius took no offense. He himself didn't immediately believe it was possible to make money from ordinary life. He got home around 6. Evie was already home, putting out groceries in the kitchen. On the table were bags of shrimp, spaghetti, vegetables, all for tonight's stream. "What's up?" he asked, kissing her cheek. "Yeah, apparently our audience is a good fit for them. Young, active, follow the trends." Darius grinned. Just a year ago he'd thought bloggers were slackers, but now he was making money himself from eating breakfast in front of the camera. Life had a way of surprising. His friends from the warehouse still made jokes about his star disease, but when he showed his income figures, the jokes died down. They ate breakfast, discussing plans for the weekend. Evie wanted to visit a friend in a neighboring town. Darius was thinking of visiting his mother. The usual conversations of an ordinary couple who had been living together for a year and a half and still hadn't gotten bored of each other. "Listen, how about we shoot a vlog about the trip to your mom's house?" Evie suggested, spreading butter on her toast. "I don't know. She's camera shy. And then, our viewers are used to homemade content. Come on, variety is good for you. Let's show how you lived as a kid, your room." Darius pictured his mother in front of the camera and barely held back a laugh. A woman who still didn't understand how he made money talking to the phone was unlikely to agree to be on camera. After breakfast, Darius went to work. The warehouse was in an industrial area of Ellendale, 20 minutes by bus from their home. The job didn't require any special skills: receive goods, sort, ship. But it paid well, and the boss treated him all right. All day long, he thought about the evening stream. There were more subscribers, more comments. Some viewers wrote that they envied their relationship, that they wished they could find the same kind of love. Darius was proud of that, so he and Evie did seem like a happy couple. A colleague, Michael, who worked in a neighboring department, often inquired about their progress online. "So, Star, how many likes did you get today?" He would joke during his lunch break. "Yesterday's stream got 15,000 views," Darius replied, not without pride. "Wow. What do people pay to watch you guys for?" "Not pay, just to watch. Advertising, donations, that's where the money is." Michael shook his head, not understanding, but Darius took no offense. He himself didn't immediately believe it was possible to make money from ordinary life. He got home around 6. Evie was already home, putting out groceries in the kitchen. On the table were bags of shrimp, spaghetti, vegetables, all for tonight's stream. "What's up?" he asked, kissing her cheek. "Fine, just tired. Had a lot of orders today, traveled halfway across town. One customer lives on the 7th floor with no elevator, can you imagine? Barely carried the package. Get some rest. I'll make my own dinner for the stream. No, 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 no. Evie waved her hands. Remember what happened last time you cooked for the camera? Darius laughed. Indeed, last time he had gotten so engrossed in talking to his subscribers that he had burned a chicken. The chat exploded with laughter, and they ordered pizza afterward. The video garnered a record number of views. Viewers loved it when something didn't go according to plan. Okay, we cooked together, the usual. They spent an hour getting ready for the stream. They cleaned the apartment, set up the right lights, checked the camera. Their setup was simple. Phone on a tripod, ring lamp, small microphone. Nothing professional, but enough for TikTok. Evie left to change in the bedroom. Meanwhile, Darius checked the comments under yesterday's video. Most were positive. A few questions about recipes. A couple suggestions to shoot collaborations with other bloggers. One comment made him frown. Evie's been weird lately. He reread it several times, but still didn't understand what the author meant. Evie returned in a beautiful dress, a light blue one that emphasized her figure. Darius wore his favorite shirt, the one that, according to subscribers, made him especially attractive. By the way, I talked to Alyssa today, Evie said, fixing her hair in front of the mirror. Alyssa who? A friend from the next town over. She blogs too, only on Instagram. Suggests we do something together. What's that? I don't know yet. A challenge of some sort or a vlog about friendship. She's more popular than us. We could grab some followers. Darius nodded. Collaborations really did help grow. He'd seen it with other bloggers. The important thing was to keep the content high quality. Ready? Evie asked, checking one last time to see how she looked on camera. Ready? Darius nodded. She pressed the button to start the broadcast. A few seconds later, greetings from viewers began to appear in the chat room. Hearts, emoticons, the familiar nicknames of regular subscribers. Hey people, Evie's hand waved happily. How's it going? How's the mood? Making seafood pasta today, Darius added, showing a bag of shrimp, and telling you about our plans for the weekend. Viewers racked up more than 1,000 viewers, a good number for their channel. Hearts and questions sprinkled in the comments. Some were curious about the recipe, some complimented Evie, some made jokes about Darius. Oh, look who's here to see us! Evie pointed to the chat room, where the nickname of one of their most active fans appeared. Hey, deep sea lover, how's it going? They started cooking. While answering questions from the chat room, Evie told a funny story about today's delivery, when the customer met her in a robe and slippers, clearly forgetting that he was waiting for the courier. Darius was sharing plans for new videos. He wanted to make a vlog about his work in the warehouse. How about we have a contest? Evie suggested. Whoever guesses how many shrimp are in this package will get stickers with our logos on them. The chat came to life. Audience members began writing numbers, from 10 to 100. Some joked around, suggesting fantastic numbers like 1,000. Darius smiled as he watched the activity of the subscribers. It was nice to see people genuinely interested in their lives, how excited they were about simple things like cooking dinner. An ordinary young couple from an ordinary American town had become part of the lives of thousands of strangers. The pasta was almost done, the shrimp fried to a golden color. Evie added the spices, stirring the sauce with a wooden spoon. It was business as usual, measured, cozy, family style. By the way, Evie said without taking her eyes off the stove, I'm going to renew my papers tomorrow. My passport's about to expire. Papers? Darius interjected, continuing to read the comments. Yes, at the Social Security office. It's perpetual bureaucracy there, but what can you do? Darius nodded, not really thinking much into her words. Paperwork, passports, the usual adult routine he preferred not to think about until he was in a pinch. How about a vlog about American bureaucracy? He joked. People ask about our lives in the comments all the time. Yeah, shoot me standing in line for 3 hours, Evie laughed. In the chat room, someone wrote that they wanted to move to America and asked for advice. Other viewers began sharing their stories about paperwork and moving. Listen, here's an interesting topic for the next stream, Darius said. Let's tell about how we met, how we moved in together. Romantic, Evie agreed. True, it wasn't all smooth sailing there. But it was honest. People love honesty. The broadcast continued. The viewers stayed active. Things went on as their evening streams rolled on. The pasta was almost ready when Darius realized he'd forgotten to bring napkins. He was used to having everything on hand during the streamings. The audience didn't like it when the hosts were constantly distracted looking for the right things. "Where are the napkins?" he asked Evie, who was stirring the sauce. "In the bedroom, on the dresser. The pack is new." Darius nodded and headed for the bedroom without turning off his camera. Some of the subscribers loved moments like this, when you could see their entire apartment, not just the kitchen. There was indeed a stack of tissues on the dresser, but next to it, Darius noticed a small stack of papers. The papers were folded sloppily, as if someone had hastily put them there. A blue passport cover was visible on top. He picked up the napkins, but his gaze fell back on the papers. Something was wrong with them. The passport lay ajar, and an unfamiliar name was written on a prominent page. Darius frowned and looked closer. "Evan DuPont," he read aloud, not realizing whose document it was. He flipped the passport over and saw the photo. His heart skipped a beat. The photo was of a young man with short hair, but the facial features were painfully familiar. It was Evie's face, only with a different hairstyle and no makeup. Darius stood holding the passport in his hands and couldn't believe what he was seeing. A chaos of thoughts swarmed in his head. Why did Evie have papers in a man's name? Why did the photo make her look like a guy? "Darius, what are you doing in there?" yelled Evie from the kitchen. "The people in the chat room are asking where you disappeared to." He tried to answer, but his voice caught in his throat. His hands shook as he flipped through the pages of his passport. Date of birth, place of birth, everything matched what he knew about Evie. But the name was male. Underneath the passport were more papers. Hospital certificates, prescriptions, documents with doctors' stamps and signatures. Darius didn't understand medical terminology, but some of the words were familiar. Hormone therapy, sex change, transgender transition. The world around him seemed to stop. Everything he'd believed in for the past year and a half had fallen to pieces. The girl he lived with, loved, trusted, turned out to be… what? He didn't even know what to call it. "Darius!" Evie's voice grew louder and more anxious. "What happened?" He picked up the papers and slowly walked back into the kitchen. Evie was standing at the stove, smiling at the camera and responding to comments from the audience. But when she saw his face, the smile instantly disappeared. "What's this?" Darius asked, showing her passport. Evie turned pale. She looked at the ID, then at him, then at the camera. Messages kept popping up in the chat room. Viewers didn't yet understand what was going on and asked to see the finished pasta. "Darius, let's talk after the stream," she said quietly. "No." His voice became hard. "Explain it now. What are these documents? Who is Evan DuPont?" Question marks began to appear in the chat room. Viewers sensed the tension and started asking if everything was okay. Some wrote that the sound had gotten quieter, while others wondered why the pasta had gone cold without attention. It's hard to explain." Evie nervously rubbed the edge of her apron. "Complicated?" Darius's voice rose. "It's your picture on a man's passport. What's complicated about it?" He looked at the document again, rereading the name. Evan DuPont, male gender, date of birth, the same as Evie's. Everything matched except the gender. "Guys, maybe this is a prank?" someone wrote in the chat room. "Come on, they always joke like that," another viewer replied. But Darius saw Evie's eyes, and there wasn't a shadow of mirth in them. only fear and despair. "Darius, please." She tried to take his hand, but he yanked it away. "Don't touch me." He took a step back. "Explain who you are, or is such a one?" He said the last word with such pain that Evie flinched. The comments in the chat room increased in frequency. The viewers were beginning to realize this wasn't a prank. "What's going on? Are they seriously fighting? Turn off the camera!" But none of them moved toward the phone. Darius stood clutching his papers, and Evie remained silent with her eyes downcast. "Speak!" he shouted. "Yeah, I was born in a man's body," she finally uttered. "But I've always been a girl on the inside. I've been in therapy for the last 3 years, taking hormones." The words sounded like hammer blows on an anvil. Each sentence shattered Darius's world into even smaller pieces. "You're a man?" He couldn't believe what he was saying. "No, I'm a woman, just born in the wrong body. You've been lying to me for a year and a half." "I didn't lie. I am a woman." Panic broke out in the chat room. The number of viewers grew to several thousand. People started sharing the link to the stream, sensing that something unusual was happening. "Turn off the camera. This is private life. Someone call the police." But among the supportive comments came others. "Cheating. He has a right to know. What an abomination." Darius read the messages with the corner of his eye, but his main focus was on Evie, on the person he no longer knew. "Why?" His voice trailed off. "Why did you hide it?" "Because I was afraid. Afraid of exactly that kind of reaction." "What kind of reaction? That I'd find out the truth? That you would look at me like a monster?" Darius looked at the medical certificates in his hands. Hormones, surgeries, psychological counseling, a whole world he knew nothing about. A world in which the girl lived, or someone who called herself a girl. "I don't know who you are," he said quietly. "I'm the same Evie you fell in love with." "No," he shook his head. "Evie doesn't exist. There's only Evan." She recoiled as if from a slap. "There isn't. Evan is the past. I've changed. I've become me." "Became you? Or became a lie?" In the chat room, the number of comments passed several hundred per minute. The viewers were split, some supporting Evie, others supporting Darius, and still others demanding the broadcast stop. Darius looked at the passport photo again. The young man was looking at him from the official snapshot. Same eyes, same nose, but the short hair and lack of femininity made the face look completely alien. "You slept with me," he said, and there was a new note in his voice, disgust. "Darius, don't—" "You forced me to have sex with you without telling me the truth." "I didn't force anyone. It was love between us." "Love?" He laughed, but the laugh was bitter. "On a lie?" Evie cried. Tears rolled down her cheeks, smearing her makeup. She looked broken and frightened, but Darius no longer felt the urge to comfort her. Anger was growing inside him, slow, heavy as lava. Anger at the deception, at the lies, at the fact that his life had been built on falsehood. "A year and a half," he repeated. "A year and a half, I lived with a man I didn't know. You knew me better than anyone else. I knew the actress." In the chat room, viewers continued to argue among themselves. Some called for tolerance, others supported Darius's right to be angry. The broadcast turned into a theater of war, where every word became a weapon. The dinner they were preparing for the audience no longer interested anyone. Even the food itself seemed now part of a false world that had collapsed in a matter of minutes. Darius stood in the middle of the kitchen, papers in hand, and felt something dark and uncontrollable growing inside him. Anger mixed with disgust, pain with rage. A year and a half of his life had become a sham, and the person he trusted the most had turned out to be a complete stranger. The air in the kitchen became thick and heavy as the pasta cooled on the stove. The ring lamp continued to illuminate their faces with bright light, and the phone screen flashed endlessly with comments from the audience. All of this, their ordinary world, their cozy space, had suddenly turned into a place where his entire life was crumbling. "Do you realize what you've done to me?" His voice became low, threatening. Evie continued to cry, but his tears no longer moved him. Now he saw them only as an attempt to elicit pity, another manipulation. How long had she rehearsed those tears? How many times had she used them to get her way? "Darius, I can explain everything." "Explain?" He threw the papers on the table so hard they shattered the surface, and the medical certificates fell to the floor next to the shrimp. "What can you explain? How you made me kiss you knowing you were a man?" "I'm not a man. How many times do I have to tell you?" "Then what are you?" "Evan DuPont, 24 years old, male, gender, it says so on your passport." He grabbed the document and shook it in front of her face. The picture of a young man with short hair stared back at them both like a mute witness to a lie. Chaos was going on in the chat room. The number of viewers had passed 5,000, and there were dozens of new comments every second. People shared the link to the broadcast, drawing more and more attention to the unfolding drama. "He's gonna kill her! Call the police! This isn't streaming anymore, it's real! Does anyone know their address?" But among the panicked messages were others. "She's been lying to him! He has a right to be angry!" What a disgusting thing to say. "He didn't know!" Darius saw the comments through his side eye, and they only added fuel to the fire. Thousands of strangers had witnessed his humiliation, his whole life, all their videos together, all their moments of intimacy. It all now looked like bullying, like a cruel joke on him. "You've made a laughing stock of me," he said, stepping closer to Evie. She retreated to the sink, pressing her back against the edge of the countertop. Behind her back hung the towels they'd bought together, their initials embroidered on them, another symbol of a fake life. "Darius, stop. You're scaring me." "I'm scaring you?" He laughed, but there was nothing funny about the laugh. "Do you know how scared I am right now? Do you realize how I feel, finding out that I've been living a deception all this time?" He thought about everything at once, the way they'd made love, the way he'd told his friends about his beautiful girlfriend, the way he'd planned to propose to her for New Year's Eve. It all turned to mockery. "How many times have you laughed at me?" he continued. "When I told you I loved you, that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you, did you laugh thinking about what a fool I was?" Evie shook her head, but the tears poured even harder. "No, never. I really love you." "Love you?" Darius's voice became shrill. "You don't even know what that is. Love is built on honesty, not lies." Evie tried to get around him, to get to the phone, to turn off this damned broadcast that had turned their private tragedy into a public spectacle. But Darius blocked her way. "Wait, we're not done talking. Darius, please, let's turn off the camera. No, let everyone see who you really are. Let everyone know the truth." He was furious that their private life had become entertainment for thousands of viewers, but at the same time, some dark part of his soul wanted everyone to see his pain, to realize how cruel this lie was. Please what? Please forget? Please pretend like nothing happened? He grabbed one of the medical documents from the floor and shook it in front of her face. "Hormone therapy, the surgeries. You turned yourself into a woman to fool people like me. I didn't do it for you. I did it for me. You lie. Everything you do is a lie. Your whole life is a lie." In the chat room, viewers continued to argue amongst themselves, but more and more people were beginning to realize the seriousness of the situation. Some were already posting about contacting emergency services, while others were trying to find the streamer's address through their old videos. "Someone needs to be warned. She's in danger. Give me the address. Are the police on their way? Record everything, it's proof." Darius read the comments and felt anger turn to rage. Even strangers saw his humiliation. His personal tragedy had become entertainment for the thousands of viewers who were now discussing his life like another show. Look what you've arranged. He pointed to the phone screen. The whole internet now knows I'm a fool who lived with a pervert for a year and a half. Don't call me that. What should I call you? Girl? Honey? Bride? He uttered the last word with particular malice. He'd actually thought about getting married, saved money for a ring, envisioned their future children. It all came crashing down in a matter of minutes. You know what the nastiest part is? He continued. Not that you're a man. It's that you let me believe we had a future. You let me fall in love with a phantom. Evie covered her face with her hands and burst into tears even harder. Her shoulders shook with sobs, but Darius no longer felt the urge to comfort her. I've wanted to tell you. Many times I've wanted to. When? During sex? Or when we were planning the future? When you met my friends? When you met my mother? The mention of his mother hit him particularly painfully. The old lady had grown so fond of Evie, constantly asking when they'd get married, saying her son had finally found a good girl. My mother still asks about you, he said more quietly, but no less angrily. What am I going to tell her? That her future daughter-in-law turned out to be a man? I was afraid of losing you, and rightly so, because a normal man wouldn't live with someone like you. The words came out of him like poison. Every sentence was meant to hurt, to humiliate, to break. He wanted her to suffer the way he was suffering now. Do you even realize what you've done to me? I don't even know who I am now. If you were able to trick me like that, then I'm a complete idiot. In the chat room, the number of messages grew exponentially. The video began to be reposted on other social networks. Scraps of dialogue were quoted on forums. Their tragedy was becoming viral content. This is unreal. This can't happen. Poor guy. We gotta stop them. Where are the police? Evie raised her head and looked at him. There was no more fear in her eyes, just desperation and something else. Determination. Something broke inside her, some last defense crumbled. You know what, Darius? Maybe you're right. Maybe I really am a monster. Her voice changed. Harder, angrier. It was as if something had awakened in her that she had long kept hidden not only from Darius, but from herself as well. Maybe I really am as deceitful and perverted as you say. She turned abruptly to the kitchen table and grabbed a vegetable slicing knife. The blade gleamed in the light of the ring lamp, reflecting their faces, his skewed with rage, and hers contorted with despair. But if I'm a monster, then you're just an ordinary asshole who can't accept anything that doesn't fit into his limited picture of the world. Darius recoiled as he saw the knife in her hands. In that moment, she didn't look like the fragile girl he knew. There was something wild, dangerous about her. Put that down. Why? Are you afraid? Do you think I can hurt you? She took a step toward him, and the knife trembled in her hand. Darius realized she didn't know how to use it, but that didn't make it any easier. A desperate man with a sharp object remained deadly. The chat room exploded with panic. Viewers began posting en masse that something scary was happening. She has a knife! Call the police now! This is no longer a prank! Someone needs to intervene! They're gonna kill each other! Some onlookers began calling emergency responders, but most just watched mesmerized, unable to tear themselves away from the unfolding tragedy. You want to know the truth? Evie continued, waving the knife. Here's the truth. Yes, I was Evan. Yes, I was born in a man's body, but I was never a man inside. Tears rolled down her face, but now there was not only pain, but rage in them. I spent years trying to be me, years of pain, surgeries, humiliation, all so that people like you can call me a pervert. Darius slowly raised his hands, trying to calm her down. Evie, put the knife down. Let's talk calmly. No, I'm tired of your insults. Tired of you turning me into a monster. You turned yourself into a monster when you started lying. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you my medical history. Everyone has a right to privacy. Privacy? Darius's voice trailed off. We live together. We're having sex. I have a right to know who I'm sleeping with. She took a step forward, and Darius instinctively backed up, hitting his back against the refrigerator. Hanging across its surface were pictures of them together, happy moments that now seemed like mockery. I didn't cheat on anyone. I just wanted to be happy. On me. On you? You got a year and a half of love. Real love. Love? From a man in a dress? In the silence of the kitchen, those words sounded like a gunshot. Evie froze, looking at him with an expression as if he'd physically hit her. Something finally broke in her eyes. A man in a dress, she repeated quietly. Then I'm just a man in a dress to you. That last phrase was the final straw. All the anger, all the pain, all the humiliation she'd endured in her life focused into one point. Evie cried out in pain and rage and lunged at him with the knife. The movement was clumsy, desperate. She didn't know how to fight, just wanted to hurt him as much as he had hurt her. The knife made a wide arc through the air. Darius reacted faster. Years of working in the warehouse had made him stronger and tougher. He grabbed her wrist, trying to dislodge the knife, and they began to struggle in the middle of the kitchen, their bodies entwined in a death struggle right in front of the camera. Evie was weaker, but desperation was giving her strength. She clawed at him with her free hand, tried to bite him, struggled like a cornered animal. Let go, she shouted. Drop the knife, he replied. The chat room became hysterical. Thousands of people were watching the fight in real time, and many were already recording what was happening on their devices. Stop! Stop! Somebody help them! This is crazy! Turn off the camera! But there was no one to help. They were alone in their apartment, and the world outside the screen could only watch and be horrified. During the struggle, they knocked over a chair, knocked plates off the table. Shards scattered across the floor, crunching under their feet. Pasta spilled, mixing with water and spices. Darius was stronger, and gradually he began to gain the upper hand. He pinned Evie against the wall, holding her wrist with the knife above her head. Enough, he shouted. Enough already, but Evie didn't give up. She pushed him in the stomach with her knee, and he loosened his grip for a moment. That was enough. She pulled free and pushed him with such force that his back hit the edge of the table. The pain caused her fingers to unclench, and the knife fell to the floor with a clang. Darius quickly picked it up, breathing heavily. Now let's talk calmly, he said, keeping the knife pointed at her. But Evie wasn't about to give up. There was a fire burning in her eyes that she'd been hiding her whole life. She grabbed a heavy cast iron skillet off the table and swung it around. Never, never again! The blow struck Darius on the shoulder, and from the surprise, he didn't keep his balance. Pain shot through him like lightning. He staggered, lost his coordination. As he fell, he instinctively held out his knife hand to keep from falling face down. The blade entered Evie's stomach easily, almost without resistance, as if it was meant to. Time stopped. The kitchen froze in absolute silence. Even the sounds from the street stopped reaching their consciousness. They both looked at each other, not realizing what had happened. A red stain began to blur on Evie's light blue dress. Small at first, the size of a coin, then bigger and bigger. Darius? She tried to say something, but only a wheeze escaped her throat. He released the knife and recoiled, looking at her with horror. The knife remained in her stomach, and blood began to ooze around the blade. I didn't mean to, Darius mumbled. It's an accident. I didn't mean to. But Evie couldn't hear him anymore. She slowly sank to the floor, pressing her hands against her wound. Blood seeped between her fingers, dripping onto the tile. Help me, she whispered, looking up at him from below. Darius stood over her, realizing that the girl's life was draining away with every passing second. One thought was swirling around in his head. What have I done? What have I done? He knelt down beside her, not knowing what to do. Should he call an ambulance? But it was too late. Too much blood, too deep a wound. "Evie, hold on," he said, but his voice shook. She looked up at him, and there was no more anger in her eyes, only sadness and something resembling forgiveness. "Yeah, I really loved you," she whispered. Those were her last words. Evie took one last weak breath and fell silent. Her eyes remained open, but her gaze became blank. Darius sat next to her body, unable to believe what had happened. The girl he had lived with for a year and a half lay dead on the floor of their kitchen, and he was her killer. The chat room exploded. Viewers screamed, cried, demanded to call the police, blamed each other and the streamers themselves. Many had already left the broadcast, unable to watch what was happening. "She's dead! Murderer! Someone needs to be arrested. This can't be real. My God, what have they done?" Darius looked at the camera, then at Evie's motionless body, then back at the screen. Thousands of people had seen him kill the man. His whole life had been ruined in a matter of minutes. The police, the trial, prison, all of it awaited him ahead. But worst of all was the realization that he had killed the person he loved. It didn't matter who she used to be. What mattered was that now she was gone. He picked up the knife that lay next to the body and looked at the blade. There was blood on it, the blood of the person he loved who was no longer there. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, not knowing exactly who the words were meant for, Evie, the audience, or himself. Darius put the blade to his neck. A new wave of panic started in the chat room, but he didn't read the comments anymore. He didn't want to live in a world where he was a murderer. His last thought wasn't pain or regret. He just wanted it all to finally be over. That the nightmare their lives had become would stop. A sudden movement of his hand, and it really was over. The camera continued to run for a few more minutes, showing two motionless bodies on the kitchen floor. Blood slowly spread across the tiles, mixing with the remnants of the spilled paste. In the chat room, people were screaming, crying, calling the police and emergency services. The broadcast was automatically interrupted by the platform 8 minutes after Darius's death. But by then, thousands of viewers had already saved the recording. The video began to spread across the internet at an alarming rate. In a neighboring apartment, Tasha Morris sat against the wall with her ear pressed against it. The screaming had stopped moments ago, and now there was only silence. An ominous, unsettling silence that spoke of something irreparable happening. Detective Xavier Reeves received the call at 22 hours and 37 minutes. Dispatch reported a homicide on Maple Street, 43, Apartment A. 2 dead, suspected domestic violence. Reeves sighed. Such cases had become more and more common in recent years. The drive to the scene took 15 minutes. Ellendale wasn't a big city, and criminal activity here was usually limited to petty theft and drunken brawls. Murders were rare, and each one was an event for the local police department. As he pulled up to the house, Reeves saw a familiar sight: police cars with blinkers, yellow tape enclosing the perimeter, and a crowd of curious neighbors. Some were holding their phones, clearly filming what was happening for social media. Officer Jenkins met him at the entrance. "What do we got, Jenkins?" Reeves asked, pulling out a notepad. 2 bodies in Apartment A. Young couple, Darius Campbell, 27 years old, and Evie DuPont, 24 years old. Neighbors called us after they heard screams. Witnesses? Upstairs neighbor Tasha Morris says she heard an argument and then everything went quiet. But there's something more interesting. Reeves raised a brow. They were streaming live on the internet when it all happened. Thousands of people saw it. Really? Totally. The video's already gone viral on all the platforms. Our tech guy Cole is downloading the footage. Reeves shook his head. The modern world never ceased to amaze him. People were willing to broadcast even their own deaths to the internet. They went up to the first floor and entered the apartment. Reeves immediately smelled the odor of blood mixed with the aroma of cold food. In the hallway was a ring lamp and a tripod with a phone, a makeshift studio for filming. The kitchen presented a horrifying sight. 2 bodies lay on the floor, a young black man in a bloody shirt and a slender girl in a blue dress. Next to the man lay a knife covered in blood. The girl had a wound in the abdominal area, and the man had a deep cut on his neck. Medical examiner Dr. Patel was already working on the bodies. He looked up as Reeves walked in. "Preliminary observations?" the detective asked. The girl died of blood loss due to a wound to the abdomen. The blow came from the bottom up, probably during a struggle. Male is suicide. Cut his own carotid artery with the same knife. Reeves looked around the kitchen more closely. On the table were scattered papers, passport, medical certificates, some papers with stamps. A pan of leftover pasta and a plate of shrimp stood nearby. "What are these documents?" Patel shrugged. "Not my area, but there's something weird with passports there." Reeves put on his gloves and scrutinized the papers. The passport was in the name Evan DuPont, male, but the photo showed a man who looked like a younger version of the dead girl. The medical papers contained information about hormone therapy and sex reassignment procedures. "Interesting," the detective muttered. Officer Cole entered the apartment with a laptop computer in hand. "Detective Reeves, I downloaded the video of the broadcast. Would you like to watch it?" "Definitely." They moved into the living room, where Cole set the laptop on the coffee table. Reeves sat down in a chair and prepared to watch. The video began peacefully enough, a young couple cooking dinner, laughing, responding to comments from the viewers. Reeves noted that they looked happy and natural, no signs of tension or aggression. That changed when the young man left to get napkins and returned with papers in hand. Reeves listened intently to the dialogue, watching the mood turn from friendly to hostile. "Stop right there," he said when he saw the moment where Darius was showing his passport. Reeves rewound and listened to Evie's explanation once more. The transgender transition, the hidden identity, the lies a year and a half long. The motive for the fight was becoming clear. Further events unfolded quickly and tragically. Reeves watched as verbal aggression turned physical, as the knife appeared, as the struggle began. The moment of the fatal wound was accidental. Darius wasn't aiming, just trying to keep his balance as he fell. "Did you see the audience's reaction?" Cole asked. "What about them? The chat is saved. Thousands of messages. People were trying to call the police. Some were recording what was happening. A lot of people were just panicking." Reeves nodded. In the age of social media, even tragedies were becoming public. He returned to the kitchen and took another close look at the scene. The picture was clear enough. A family argument over cheating that had escalated into a physical confrontation, an accidental murder, and a subsequent suicide. Tasha Morris was waiting in the hallway. A woman of about 25 looked shocked and frightened. "Ms. Morris, tell me what you heard tonight." About 11:30, the screaming started. At first, I thought they were just arguing. The walls are thin. You can hear it sometimes. But then the screams became very frightening, and I realized that something serious was going on. "Did you know the neighbors well?" "Not really. We said hello, sometimes chatted in the elevator. They seemed like a nice couple, made videos for the internet, always laughing." "Did you know anything about their personal lives?" Tasha wrinkled her nose. "Well, I knew Darius worked in a warehouse, and Evie was a courier. They lived together for over a year, seemed happy." "No sign of relationship problems?" "No, none. That's why this is so shocking." Reeves recorded her statement and let it go. The case was clear enough, but the protocol required a thorough investigation. He went back to examining the paperwork. Medical certificates confirmed that Evie DuPont had undergone sex reassignment procedures within the last 3 years. Hormone therapy, psychological counseling, surgical interventions, the full course of transgender transition. What was interesting was that all the paperwork was done legally. This was not a case of fraud or identity fraud, just a man who wanted to change his gender and was doing so through official medical channels. Reeves realized that Darius's motives were understandable from a human perspective. To learn such a truth about someone you've lived with for a year and a half is truly shocking. The feelings of deceit, anger, confusion, all could have led to tragedy. Dr. Patel finished his preliminary examination. "What do you think?" Reeves asked. The girl's death was due to loss of blood. The abdominal wound damaged the major vessels. Given the angle of entry and the nature of the wound, it could have been either a deliberate killing or an accident during the struggle. And suicide? Obviously. A deep cut to the carotid artery, self-inflicted. Death occurred within minutes. Reeves nodded. The videotape confirmed the accident version. Darius hadn't planned to kill Evie. It had all happened during the struggle. He went over the key moments of the video once more. Darius's reaction to the discovery of the documents seemed genuine. Shock, incomprehension, then anger. These were all natural emotions of a man who suddenly learned the shocking truth. Evie hadn't planned to kill either. She was simply defending herself against verbal aggression in the only way available. She took the knife in desperation, not with the intent to do serious harm. The tragedy was the result of an emotional outburst, not a premeditated crime. By midnight, Reeves had completed his preliminary investigation. Bodies were sent to the morgue for detailed autopsies, and evidence was collected and catalogued. The videotape of the broadcast was key evidence showing the exact sequence of events. In his report, he wrote, "The death of Evie Dupont is classified as second-degree murder, committed during a domestic dispute without prior intent. The death of Darius Campbell is a suicide. The case is closed due to the death of the only suspect." Leaving the apartment, Reeves looked back once more at the scene of the tragedy. 2 young men had lost their lives over a secret one was keeping from the other. Perhaps if Evie had told the truth sooner, things would have turned out differently. Or perhaps honesty would have only hastened the inevitable. The detective wasn't a judge of morality. His job was to establish the facts, and the facts were clear. A family tragedy that ended in the deaths of both parties to the conflict.